we have now reached our final storyteller of the night. He is a best-selling author, photographer, and monologuist. He is also the creator of the world's very first travel blog, launched in 1994. And he is now the executive director of Ethical Traveler, which is an Oakland-based nonprofit. Everyone, please give a warm welcome to Jeff Greenwald.
Thanks. What a great community of people and what terrific storytellers. Thank you all for coming out tonight and for staying a little bit later. With all this talk about the eclipse coming up on August 21st, I thought I'd tell a story kind of in that vein. 18 years ago, in August of 1999, I traveled with a very small group of Americans to Iran to watch the total eclipse of the sun. We were the only Americans in Iran at the time, just the 6 of us, and the other people in the group were what they call eclipse hounds. These are people who add up all the time they've spent under total solar eclipses and compete with each other. We were in the city of Isfahan in Iran, and they determined that if they drove 4 hours into the desert, they could add 3 seconds to the amount of time it would be a total eclipse. They didn't hesitate. They rented a Pathfinder, and they said, we're leaving at 6 in the morning, so we'll see the eclipse. I said, you go ahead. I'm having breakfast in bed. I'm going to see the eclipse from right here in Isfahan. And there's a funny feeling to wake up in the morning and know that you're the only American in a city in Iran. This was especially true in 1999 when relations were probably around the same as they are right now. And so I packed a little lunch and I took a book and a blanket from the hotel and I started heading through the streets to the main square of Isfahan, which is called Imam Khomeini Square. And this is one of the world's largest public squares, equivalent to Tiananmen Square or to Red Square, one of these gigantic, enormous public squares that's like the size of 18 football fields put together. But it's a beautiful square. It's got sort of trees all along the ends. There's these beautiful walls from when Isfahan was a walled city. And in the distance, across the square from where I put my blanket, there's this beautiful alabaster mosque called, I think it's called Luftfallah, the women's mosque. And it has this brilliant white alabaster dome. And the legend says if you pick a spot to sit in that square and stare at that dome from about an hour before sunrise until an hour after sunset, you will have seen every color of the rainbow pass across that white alabaster dome. The eclipse was going to happen at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And as I sat there, out there at about 1 o'clock, the square began to fill up with Iranians, Iranian families, Iranian kids, Iranian groups of women, men in turbans, young men with beards, all kinds of people began to come in and spread their blankets out all around me as far as the eye could see. They all had those funny glasses that you use to watch the eclipse. The police were handing them out at every single corner. And they had bright pictures of the sun and moon on them and just sort of words, eclipse in Farsi. It was really, really beautiful. And I sat down and I watched and I waited. And at 1:15, it began. The disk of the moon, which is invisible because eclipses of the sun, total eclipses, even partial ones, only happen during the new moon. The disk of the moon began to move across the face of the sun. And at first, it's such a subtle change in light that you can't really see it unless you have a pinhole camera or these eclipse glasses, because it doesn't get noticeably darker. It's just like 99% of the sun. 1% of the sun is enough to illuminate the whole world. But slowly, 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 the moon continues its path across the face of the sun. And there's this feeling of awe that comes over you, because you know that nothing ever devised by the human race, nothing in the world can stop this procession of celestial globes that's taking place on the ball you're standing on called Earth, and the sun 93 million miles away, and the moon just a 3-day trip by rocket ship away, all moving in perfect conjunction to the spot where you're standing. I looked around the square. People were pulling out sandwiches, reading books, chatting. It was like an Iranian Woodstock. Everyone was there. I looked around and saw all the buildings. The light wasn't seeming to change, but I don't know how many of you are aware of this, that the flag of Islam, you all know that the Jewish flag, the Israeli flag, and the symbol of Judaism is the Star of David, and the symbol of Christianity is the cross. Well, the symbol of Islam is the crescent. It's actually the crescent moon, and it symbolizes the day when Muhammad came out from his hijra in the desert that's celebrated now as the holiday called Eid. At a certain point, at about 2:30, the moon had obscured the sun to the perfect point where the eclipsed sun was exactly the shape of a crescent on the Islamic flag. And at that moment, all of the tens of thousands of women in this entire gigantic square took out their little makeup compacts, and using their mirrors, they reflected images of the crescent sun all around the square, on every tree, on all of the ancient walls, on all of the buildings, on the women's mosque. Tiny little crescent suns danced around, tens of thousands of them, and as if with one voice from this square came this cry from men and women alike, "Mashallah, Mashallah, what wonders God has willed." Absolutely beautiful. And then the moon moved just a little further over the sun, and the shape was lost, and the compacts were clipped shut. At this point, it was about 2:45, 15 minutes before the total solar eclipse. And then something very, very different happened. A group of young men sitting about 50 feet from me, a small group, maybe about 6 or 7 men, with long beards and traditional Iranian turbans, reached into their backpacks and pulled out automatic weapons and American flags. And they began to light the American flags on fire, fire the automatic weapons into the air, and chant anti-American slogans. And everyone around the square turned to see what was going on. This huge conflagration, all the people starting to taking pictures, the flags burning, the guns being leveled in the air. And at that moment, the most extraordinary thing happened, because I had no plan B at that point. But the Iranians around me did. In an instant, without a single word to each other, without having ever really spoken to me or asked me where I was from, all of the Iranians in my vicinity, dozens of them, men, women, and children, stood up, walked towards me, and made a ring around me. They enclosed me in this sort of donut of humanity, about 3 people deep. And I remember some of them. I remember looking to my left and seeing a woman in a rosari, a traditional shawl, and though she couldn't touch me, she looked at me with a look of absolute defiance. "I've got your back." On my right side, an 8-year-old boy had sort of reached over and was grabbing the 2 fingers of my right hand. And when I looked down at him, he looked up at me with this expression that said, "If they want you, they've got to get through me first." And behind me, an old man, an elderly man with a white beard, put his hand on my shoulder, and he leaned over to my ear and he said, "Do you see those people over there?" Pointed at the fanatics who were still firing their guns in the air. "Do you see those people over there?" And I said, "Yes." I see them. He said, "They should get a job." The demonstration lasted about 3 or 4 minutes. Then they ran out of blanks. The flags had all burned up. They just sat back, zipped up their day packs, put their automatic weapons away, and sat back like everyone else to watch the eclipse. I don't know how many of you have seen a total solar eclipse, but there's nothing like it in the entire world. There's this moment when there's sort of like 99% of the sun is covered, and it still looks bright as day. And then the moon moves off across the sun just a little bit more, and suddenly you get this phenomenal effect called Bailey's beads, where the sunlight is filtering between the mountains on the horizon of the moon, sending these brilliant flashes of light down to Earth. And then blackness, utter blackness. Stars appear in the sky, and around the black disk of the sun, flames shoot out as the solar corona, invisible at any other time, is suddenly revealed, and you can take off your eclipse glasses and look with your naked eye at the sun and this ring of fire around it. the eclipse lasted 1 minute and 4 seconds. And at 1 minute and 3 seconds, I had this astonishing idea that just came over me out of nowhere. And I turned my gaze away from the sun, and I looked down at the women's mas. And as the moon moved across the face of the sun, letting a tiny bit of light through, Bailey's beads and shimmering from the mountains, and then the first crack of the sun, I saw, in a 15-second moment, every color of the rainbow pass across the alabaster dome of the women's mas. And then suddenly, it was daylight again. A 99% eclipse, a 98% eclipse, 95%, as the moon continued moving across the heaven, and Imam Khomeini Square was absolutely bathed in light. And the people around me began to pack up their things, and they put their pinhole cameras away, and they packed up the scraps of their lunch, and they folded up their blankets, and they put them in their picnic baskets, and they nodded to me as they walked away, the women, the men, the children. And I watched them go. And I seen something so beautiful that day, and yet I realized, I really knew that for all the Iranians in the square that day, that afternoon had been entirely about the eclipse. But for me, that eclipse had been entirely about the Iranians. Thank you.